You can black out the screen too.
I mean, like, go for it.
Oh,
I have no idea.
We used to do it when we did. It's just less awkward.
Oh, okay.
And then we can like watch them songs and cry.
Hi, everybody. So Kitty and I will be facilitating group today. First off, before we get started, we wanted to welcome you all and appreciate you all for being able and willing to join us today. I know there's a lot to go over about what this entails and what this process will be like, so we want to recognize that first. Before we get into the details of what group will consist of, I kind of want to go around first, kind of check in to see where everyone's at, where everyone is at right now, and what's on everyone's mind. So maybe if we go around to my right, everyone just say their name and kind of how you're feeling, give us a little snapshot.
I'm Chelsea. Feeling like a new one or feeling about the group?
Maybe on day one of group, how are you feeling about that?
I was pretty nervous. Today I feel okay. I had a pretty good week, so I think that's why I'm just like more than last week.
Okay. Agada.
Emily, not great, but okay.
Megan? Mm-hmm. I was in 3 times this weekend. Arceli, and we'll post it. This is a really long day for me. Sonia.
I'm Nikki, and I'm getting over being sick, so I'm kind of tired and heading out of it, but happy to be here.
Lindsay, sorry I said Lindsay because I'm sick. So it's kind of but about the energy, okay about this.
Oh yeah, and I feel good.
I'm feeling a little bit nervous about this, like being, facilitating first, but, I feel like Teresa and I have a pretty good idea of what we're doing here. I will just share that having gone over everything we're supposed to do in the first session, I'm feeling a little bit like of pressure about, okay, all these things gotta cover. I'm also feeling a little bit self-conscious about sounding like I'm acting because I'm trying to specifically go over things that Ginger just said. So I just wanted to put that out there. But, yeah.
I appreciate you for taking that risk and letting everyone know how you honestly feel. I too feel nervous, but it's an excited nervous. I feel ready to hear how folks plan to engage in this process, and I'm excited and nervous about that as well. And overall, my energy's good, and I look forward to this session.
Before we sort of get into things, I think Teresa and I just kind of wanted to go over a general idea of sort of how we've conceptualized the group, and then we want to get into more of a process about how the group wants to handle this. So today is session 1 of 12 sessions that we'll have together. Obviously, Teresa and I are going to be facilitating every session, but just so everybody's on the same page about that. During check-ins, I was hearing a lot of, a lot of you are tired and kind of low energy today, and I totally hear you on that. So I guess I just kind of wanted to start off by talking about the fact that, as Ginger said, it's not necessarily a choice that we're here, but what we do with the time here is our choice. And so Teresa and I were talking a lot about the importance of participation and engagement in the group. And I know that that's really hard when we have low energy and, we're all really tired and feeling kind of overwhelmed with school. So I think we just want to talk a little bit about the importance of taking ownership, commitment, and responsibility to the group. A couple of just housekeeping things before we really get into everything else is just that we ask that you guys show up on time and try to make it to every session. I think we're all pretty clear on phones, kind of just putting them on silent, leaving them out of it. And I think the same thing kind of goes for food. But if anybody has an issue with any of those things, feel free to bring it up. Is everybody kind of okay with those few solid rules that we came up with beforehand?
Before we go into what else is on our lengthy agenda, I kind of want to check in to see where folks are at. It is apparent that everyone is on a different level when it comes to energy. It's Monday. People have different weekends. And so I kind of want to get a sense if folks are able and willing to share, after hearing all that we've said so far, what that's feeling like for you right now. Good.
Solid. Clear.
Are there any red flags that were raised, or folks apprehensive about anything, or something that we said that you may need more clarification on? Yeah.
Are we good with water?
Yeah.
Drinking water, is that, does anybody have any issue with that? Yeah, I think water.
Do we have time, just logistically, like when the group is over, we have time where we're all sitting back together as a whole?
Yeah, there's gonna be
Okay,
a
I was just gonna say, cause I know
process
people
and
go to
how
work
this
after this, so eating, I was like, if we don't have any time and they can't eat while they're driving, so it's safe, but if we have time after, that's fine, okay.
Yeah, I can't speak to the rules about the process after
Yeah.
the group, but I know there is like a half an hour of time to process what happens in the group after the group.
I wanted to re-emphasize the importance of, and we'll get into this as we explore what this group means to us, but the importance of, this isn't a Katie and Teresa's gonna feel self-safe kind of group. We wanna kind of drive the point home that group counseling and group therapy is very much about a communal agreement of a communal engagement of sorts, where everyone has kind of a stake in this. When your energy comes in the room, it affects those around you, but that also gets to be honored as well, wherever you're at, and vice versa for everyone in the group. It's not that we're running the show, to say the least. It's that we're all committing as much as we can in our capacity to be here, to engage, and to be present. And when you're not able to do that, it's also a commitment to communicate that as well, right? So the next thing we wanted to get into, someone called house rules, and Katie kind of began that. We renamed them as community agreements, just to further emphasize the point of this being a communal effort. When we hear rules, we hear people can get reprimanded for if rules are broken and things like that, right? Community agreements kind of drives home the point that we all come together to hold ourselves accountable, to agreeing upon guidelines that can help guide our process, and also feel comfortable enough over time to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we're moving together. That it doesn't matter if a few people in the group understand the agreements and understand the process while the rest of the group doesn't. It's that we're moving together and we're moving forward in a similar direction, in the same motion, right? And so if everyone can look on the board, we started out by brainstorming agreements that we feel we want to get the group consensus on how you feel about it. So me and Katie will take turns just voicing them. The first one is safety. I think that's a really important, first and foremost, is that this isn't about making this group safe for everyone in terms of having the same definition of safety. It's about, and I kind of want to pose this to the group, is asking folks, like, what does safety even mean to folks? Like, what do you need in order to feel safe in a process like this? Recognizing that there are a lot of dual relationships, recognizing that some of us are close friends outside of this space and bring a lot into it when we're together. So kind of off top, I kind of want to get a sense of, people can just share out loud, what does safety mean for you? What do you need in order to feel safe? Whether you're in this group or any process with other folks.
I need transparency, I feel like. A sense that, like, yeah, that's the word. We're trying to describe it like.
So kind of that concept that we've been talking about making the covert overt. Making the covert overt.
Right, or what's gonna be, like,
people will be honest with me, but also like honest with each other. Like that there's just sort of a sense of like what we're seeing is what we get. There's nothing genuine, it's authentic.
Not loaded.
Yeah, or not like there's no like hidden agenda or fake or
Yeah.
sort of like hidden kind of conversations or
So I think that kind of relates to a couple of points on the board and that sort of dual relationships and also openness to feedback. So just kind of understanding that we all have relationships with each other outside of this room and I can feel a little bit of anxiety and I can relate to you on that in terms of what those relationships mean outside of here and how that's going to affect our process in here. Is anybody else sharing Emily's feelings about that? I'm seeing quite a few nodding heads. So I definitely don't think that you're alone in that feeling. Does anybody have any ideas about how we can protect us as a group as well as our outside relationships in that way? It sounds like in order for a lot of us to feel safe in here, we have to sort of talk about that.
I think this goes like the next point, confidentiality, but like kind of like what's in here is in here and it stays in here. And like even if you are friends with people outside of it, it's like it's not like you go home and all of a sudden I talk to her about what we just talked about. You know, that's right. We're here this time.
Yeah.
Keeping it in the room.
So what happens if that does happen? What happens if, you know, we're hanging out with one of our closer friends from the group outside and that comes up?
Maybe whoever does that brings that up in the next session.
Okay.
Like owns it.
No, I think you make a great point. I think also whoever is hearing that, if that's the scenario, they have a right to feel accountable and responsible to the group that to kind of like hold off or help the person know that like what they're sharing outside the group is inappropriate. It's not respectful to the fact that we're trying to keep this as safe of a space as possible for folks. And so yeah, accountability and responsibility to the group. What does that mean? Those are kind of loaded. When folks tell you to be responsible for something or you're accountable for something, what is that? How are you feeling that when it comes to the context of the group?
What it brings up for me is like if I'm outside of the group and then someone kind of starts a conversation about the group, it's my responsibility to be like, well, you know, let's save it for the group instead of outside. Yeah. You know, just stop it right there and then we'll just save it for the next group.
So sort of a sense of accountability. Something that came up for me when you said that was that it would be really hard for me in that sense. You know, it's kind of easy when you're thinking about it, but then in that situation, it's hard to be the one to do that because I don't know, maybe you would feel judged by the other people or you're kind of the wet blanket. I don't know.
Maybe part of the agreement then is that if you do kind of go there outside of group, you're gonna expect that someone's going to challenge you with this.
Yeah.
So that everyone feels empowered to. If they hear someone saying that, they can stop them.
Are we allowed to talk about our feelings outside of the group? Like how we experience, like let's say I had a really tough group session and then I like wanted to reach out to one of you to be like, that's really hard for me. Like is that allowed? How do folks feel?
Yeah, I think it should be. I guess it's like totally goes against what we've just been saying, but I feel like
No, but I
that
mean
should.
not talking about any context, just talking about my own feelings and how it related to it.
I think it should be able to.
And I think you bring up a good point, Linda, because the whole point of confidence, a lot of times folks think confidentiality just means what's said here stays here, but the root word of confidentiality is confidence, and it's the idea of like being confident that your story won't be taken out of context, right? By yourself or by others, right? It's more than just keep it a secret. It's that you're not skewing it, you're not taking it out of context, you're not disrespecting it. It's a lot more than just don't tell anybody, right?
And I think also in that situation, even if you did bring up your feelings to someone else, I would encourage you to also bring that up next time in group. And if you feel comfortable sharing with the group that you had a hard session, so that we could process that, because I think that that's the kind of thing that's really going to be beneficial for the group, and also create that sense of trust that somebody's able to come back and say, hey, last week was really hard for me, and this is why, and this is what I need from you guys to help me with that, or I just think that really helps with the group dynamic. So, and I think something you said, Megan, about you said that other people in the group can kind of expect that you're going to challenge them. That reminded me of openness to feedback, sort of this agreement of what we can expect from each other in terms of challenging each other, right? Because we're talking about this as a process of talking about what's going on right now between us. Like, I'm saying something to Nikki, and maybe somebody will notice that maybe Nikki's body language showed that it made her uncomfortable that I said that. We can talk about that interaction in here right now. And so I wanna know what everybody kind of feels about feedback, like about how are you feeling about the idea of receiving potentially like feedback that's a little bit hard to hear, and how are you feeling about giving that feedback to each other?
I think it's, for me at least, much harder actually to give it than receive it. I actually really welcome it and love hearing it, and even if it's hard, like I just feel like that's a piece of information that I'm gaining about someone else's perspective of me, which I always welcome. But giving it is much, I always have this assumption that if I give feedback, it's gonna hurt someone. And so it's always hard for me to do that.
Chelsea, you seem to be resonating.
Yeah, I really agree with that.
Probably really superficial feedback.
What do we think about that idea of superficial feedback?
I don't want it.
Same. It's where I was saying transparency.
Yeah, it seems like it kind of goes against
Like,
that
I'd
very
rather
first
have
thing
no
on the
feedback
side.
than superficial.
Yeah,
That's, I
it's not
usually
gonna help
no
at all.
Seems like it's kind of going exactly against the first point that Emily brought up of like wanting transparency and no fakeness. And it really, I'm feeling a sense just now that everybody really resonated with that.
How do you like the word fake? Like, what does that mean? I mean, obviously I know what that means, but like,
Right.
what does that mean in the context of a group? Because like, how do you know when someone's being fake or not? Like, if you don't really know them, then you don't really know them, and then let's say they're really showing just maybe how they are at that moment. Maybe in that moment, whatever, they're this way, and to you, like, you're thinking like, well, they're being fake. Like, how do you really know that if you don't really know that person? Or how do you, I don't know.
We're agreeing like that I'm gonna be, that after this conversation, like I'm agreeing that I won't be giving you something that's not authentic. Like you won't know.
Right.
Well, I mean, maybe you would know, but like, you might have a hunch, but like, I'm agreeing that like, I won't do that for you. Or for anybody.
I think it's about trust, just like trusting that we will be real with you.
I think it's less too about what I'm judging someone else's authenticity would be as much as whether I'm judging my own. Like, am I bringing my real self to this group? And like, I probably don't think I'm a good judge of maybe others, but I can tell when I'm like just trying to gauge myself. Like, am I really bringing me here, or am I trying to present or perform or do something else? So I think that's when I say transparency. That's like, I guess I'm just more self-focused on that.
Yeah. No.
If that helps.
And I appreciate your clarification, because it can get murky when we throw out to me, fake is a loaded word.
Yeah.
Because it comes with a lot of assumptions, especially if it's the other person who's assuming you're being fake, and not so much focusing on yourself. So I'm glad that you clarified that, because transparency means to me like my own transparency, not
Right.
assuming someone else is not being transparent.
Yeah.
So
I'm curious, when you asked for that clarification on the word fake, like how do we know when somebody's being fake? I'm curious if that question came from more of an anxiety about whether other people will perceive that you're being fake, or about you not knowing when other people are being fake.
I just don't like the word fake.
Okay.
Personally. So, like, especially in the context of therapy, to me, like, the word fake it's not
like transparency is a great word, and maybe transparency is like a better term for that, you know. So because I don't like the word fake, it stuck with me. So that's my own. That's why I wanted to bring it up, you know, and kind of clarify it, and not assume that I knew what people were talking about.
Yeah. No, thank you for
so
asking for that clarification.
Yeah, that was it.
Okay.
I agree. Like in high school, being called fake is like one of the worst things.
And maybe lessening the impact of a word like fake and heightening the impact of being authentic or being as genuine as we can be. And that a lot of times it is about us taking our own inventory, about keeping the focus on ourselves and wondering where our thoughts are coming from about other people. Like, why are they not being as genuine? Or like, why do I feel they're not being as genuine? Things like that. Questioning first yourself in the context of your relationship with other folks. Right? Also, I kind of want to get your 2 cents on how you're feeling right now about anything. Is anything resonating with you? Anything that you're like, I can't do that.
Well, I guess like in terms of like giving feedback, I know that's gonna be hard for me, but I'm open to trying to learn to communicate that. So, and I feel like now that we're establishing a sense of safety and just all that, like that helps me knowing that okay, I can practice this.
Instead of us just writing feedback up there and us writing openness to feedback, how did that make you feel when you first read it? Knowing that you have these anxiety around it.
I don't think I really had any anxiety about it. Like I welcome it.
Well, thank you for correcting me. I didn't need to sign that. Katie, you want to talk about boundaries?
Sure. Yeah. I guess that's also just kind of a general word that we put up there. I just kind of wanted to see how the group felt about boundaries. I know confidentiality is a boundary. Openness to feedback is a boundary. Accountability and response, they're all boundaries. But I was curious if there was any other anxieties that were sort of coming up in people about how this process is going to go. Anything that you're wondering, like, can I do that? Is that appropriate in this? Like, have you thought about this process at all? And do you have any questions about what's okay and what's not okay?
I just kind of had an idea that I think may go without saying, but maybe we should just say it anyway.
Absolutely.
Not getting up at all, like to use the bathroom and go potty bottle and stuff like that. Being more like doing that before we get here. I mean, just to be honest, I may have to use the bathroom during group one time because I really smell butter. So,
Or maybe if folks who know that about themselves want to sound like that.
outer.
This part closer to the door,
Sure.
instead of interfering, like crossing the door.
I mean, we're grown-ups, I think timing it appropriately matters. Like, if somebody is sitting there, like, pouring their heart out, like, don't get up in the middle of that. It's trouble.
No, I probably would be a person who's gonna get up.
And I don't like feeling like I'm not allowed to go to the bathroom. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I kind of get the sense that there's like mixed feelings about that, and I don't want anybody that's sort of on the side of, well, I kind of want to be allowed to get up and use the bathroom to feel any kind of like shame about doing that, because there are folks that are feeling less about that, feeling, am I making sense? More like we shouldn't be doing that. So I just don't want the people that do get up to, I want to talk about that feeling, if that happens, not feeling like shame about that, you know.
In the same vein of, I think, I appreciate you for bringing it up again, because I think it's more of a respect issue. You don't want folks to disrupt the flow of the dialogue by doing something like that. But with Chelsea clarifying, like, if folks can be aware of when it's happening, how does all that feedback feel for you after hearing?
I'm really glad I
folks'
brought it
input?
up because I didn't realize we were so split on it.
Yeah.
Because I just kind of assumed like, but you know, I don't want anyone like struggle with their bladder. I don't want them to like sit there really uncomfortable.
can I just say, I love that you started it with like, I assumed that we're all on the same page. And then like, we so clearly weren't. Like,
Yeah, so I'm really glad
it's
I
so great
put it
that
on.
you said it. Because like, I was like,
Yeah, so I'm glad. But yeah, I don't want anyone to struggle. I just, I guess what Chelsea
Yeah, I
said.
think we time it more appropriately. Like, I know when we have more lecture classes, people are more inclined to just get up and use the bathroom. But when we're in practicum, maybe people are more present. So hopefully we'll be present.
Yeah, so I think the general idea behind that was respect, for each other when we're talking. So I think we can all kind of figure that out.
So, for anything, I wanted to communicate that community. Another thing, a great thing about community agreements is that they're never really closed. Like we're not like, okay, those are the only things that we have to abide by and keep ourselves accountable to. We keep them open throughout our whole process together because we invite folks to, when things come up for them as the relationship goes in our group, if things come up and you're like, okay, I want to bring this to the attention of the group, and this is something that I didn't know I needed in our first session, but I think would be beneficial for the group to know now, then we just add it. And that's what I kind of want to open it up for right now is if none of the points on the board encompassed something that you need right now, I want folks to share right now as I go to the board. Anything else I should be adding? What do you need in order to feel present? What do you need in order to feel as safe as possible? What will help you engage in the group? And as you say them, I'll make them. You can help me find them if need be. What other agreements or things do folks need? Sorry.
I feel like I need permission to talk. I can't just, jump in.
So what would permission look like?
Maybe like not. I don't like the word, but like calling me out.
Okay.
So it's not safe to assume that every time me and Katie go, how do folks feel, that you will always jump in.
Right.
Something like how I addressed Araceli personally
Exactly.
to check and see where she's at. Okay, for sure. Thank you for sharing that.
Araceli, what was that like for you when Teresa sort of brought you into the group?
It was good. Because honestly, like, I'm like really sleepy, so I kind of wake me up. So I really appreciated that. And like similar to Sonia, like not, I guess that permission to speak. I don't know when to jump in to say something, so that does help.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you felt that way. I can also see how for some people that also might be anxiety provoking or not feel okay. So I'm just wondering if for anyone in the group, that sort of thing, sort of like giving you permission in that very direct way is uncomfortable or not okay if that were you in that situation.
I was gonna say something along those lines. I don't think it's a lot of anxiety provoking or it upsets me, but I just think slower and I process things at a slower pace. So I take a really long time to think about what people are saying and what I want to offer.
Kind of along that. So like if I have something to say, I'm kind of usually trying to say it, find a place to say it. But when I'm not saying anything, I get called and say something, I'm like, we give something a lot less genuine.
Okay.
I feel like too, I tend to talk a lot in groups and stuff, but like if something is really hard for me or maybe like I just don't feel ready to talk about something, if someone were to like call me out like that, it might make me feel like really on the spot and you know what I mean? And like not wanting to share or like, cause like everyone wants to share something when they're ready to share something.
Yeah.
So like, I totally think it's a good thing, but then I see at the same time you really gotta hone into like how the person is feeling and try to read their like nonverbals or something, because if like, I don't know, because if it is something then maybe they should share.
So I'm noticing, with Lindsay and Megan and Nikki, like you all three of you had very different kind of ideas about how you would feel in that situation, or different things in your personality about what it means when you're sharing and when you're not sharing. For some people, not sharing means that they just didn't feel like they had the permission to. For some people, not sharing means that they genuinely didn't have something to say, and then when you call on them, it's not going to be genuine. So I would just sort of ask if maybe this is something that we can put up there in those situations. If somebody, Megan say, I noticed you weren't talking and I brought you into the group and you really didn't have something to say. I think that goes back to one of the first things we were talking about, which is transparency and just sort of feeling comfortable instead of saying something ingenuine. For example, you feel comfortable enough to say, you know what, I don't have anything to say at this time. Just sort of being able to be transparent about where you're at when somebody draws you into the group and say, I appreciate you drawing me into the group, but I genuinely didn't have anything to say, or I'm not comfortable talking about it at this point, So I don't know how we can sort of put that into
respecting personal boundaries, maybe.
Yeah. Respecting personal boundaries. Yeah, that's better.
Speaking of process, I kind of want to get a sense, because I'm not very familiar with who needs that permission yet, but if this does apply to you, I want to know how it's like for folks who aren't always inclined to speak without permission, what it's like to observe those who do that, who it comes so natural for them, it seems, that they don't have they don't need as much time to vocalize where their feelings are. Like Sonia or Celia or anyone else who can resonate with needing permission to speak. What is it like for being in a group with folks who don't all need that permission?
Oh, I think for me, I'm just aware of my own introvertedness, and I know that Lindsay, it takes me a really long time to process the information, and so when everyone's bouncing off, I'm just oh my god, so much information, and so it takes really long to process, and that's why I feel like I can't speak right away because I'm still thinking about it. So just seeing everyone bouncing off of each other, it's it's nice to see, and I wish I could be that way, but.
And for folks who resonate more with what Nikki was saying, and Megan, that it kind of, when you have something in mind, you kind of raise your hand and say it. Like, how does that feel for you to hear someone like Sonia vocalize that? It's great for the dialogue to happen like that, but sometimes it can be kind of chaotic, and it may even prevent folks from being able to join in because there's so much going on, because they're still processing. How does that feel to hear?
It makes me feel like that maybe because I will tend to right now I raise my hand pretty quick. I'll jump in pretty fast. Maybe I should take a second and kind of process too, but still participate in everything too, but also give time for other people to gather their thoughts.
So making space for each other.
Can I name that as being comfortable with silence sometimes? So I think sometimes we feel that urge to always feel it, but if you're conscious that not everyone, that some folks need that in order to be more part of the group and on the same page, if it could help others and not stunt your own ability to participate, is it beneficial for the group? Be comfortable with that. Is that something folks are okay with me putting up?
Yeah. Well, maybe whoever's facilitating could, if it's bouncing around, it's gonna be a story really fast. Can we take a minute? Quiet for a minute. Or anyone could say that, I guess.
Yeah. Well, the fact that you brought up sort of something that facilitators can do is another thing that I think Teresa and I wanted to just open as a question to the group. Is there anything that you guys need from us as facilitators that we haven't mentioned that would help you feel safe and present and willing to participate and comfortable?
Kind of feel weird with Teresa over there.
Okay.
I don't know if it's that I'm sitting in a spot where my back is to you, but I don't feel and I'm literally only speaking for myself, I don't feel like having this up there over there is necessarily benefiting me. So maybe if we decide that the board is something we want to use in our group, we could set up over there.
That's a great point.
Because this is so weird for me.
Our plan was to have butcher paper. It fell through. I thought we were going to be in here. We're not.
It's
and
fine.
So
Yeah.
Not always
I just
happen.
wanted to throw that out.
I
having
agree.
this here.
For sure.
I appreciate you.
And then I was
Understood.
like, should I move? And then I'm
What's
like, no, I'm not gonna move.
I just heard Emily say she agrees with you. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our goal is to have these up in a visible place every session and a place where we can add to them when needed. Butcher paper will be provided next week. But for now,
Teresa, I wonder if you want to come back, we can just like write it on paper and then maybe put it up at the end, and if people want to take a picture of that at the end.
And I have a question, are these, like, is this, I mean, I'm so confused, I think, still about how this is gonna work, but are these agreements that are then for the group for the rest of the semester, regardless of who's facilitating?
Yes.
Like, the facilitator's popping in and out, but this
Yes.
is, okay, thanks.
Like, so basically Katie and Teresa are
Or like
all
doing the
hard
job
work.
for.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of, I'm kind of worried about that, because then we don't have Ken, Genesis, or Mary having any say in these rules.
Well, you probably have to
Yeah,
every
okay.
session,
Yeah.
just sort of reopen it to anybody.
And I think that goes back to what Teresa was saying, is that these are never closed. Like, it can be the 11th session, and if there's something that you need in that 11th session or 12th session that you want to add to that list, we can add it.
I think the idea of the visual of them and them being up every session is also part of accountability. Is they're in your mind. You walk out with them on your mind and things like that, and so you get more committed when you realize they're not going away and that you're part of it. You have a stake in them. So.
I'm feeling a little bit like Teresa and I have been talking a lot in this session. But I am really happy with how you guys are participating. But I guess I just want to turn it back on you guys for a second and see, like, check in and see how you're feeling so far. Like, how is this process? Has this been what you thought it was gonna be, or how is it different? How are you feeling?
I think it's easier than I thought it was gonna be. Less weird, just overall. I'm feeling a little bit ambivalent about. I feel like we had a lot to cover and we kind of breezed through it at the beginning, and now it's getting easier to talk about. But I'm more hesitant about bringing some of the things in the group outside the group and what that accountability looks like. You know, like if I'm bringing to the group a problem that I'm having with my partner, like how, you know, like, and I'm telling Agatha about it, and she's like, well, remember what Megan said in group, like, blah, 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 and that's helpful to me in that moment when I'm distressed or whatever it is. Like, I'm not sure how to navigate those types of things, and I feel like we kind of brushed through that, and it still feels really unclear to me. And I don't know if I just need more boundaries than maybe other people do, and I can navigate that later, or if other people are sharing that.
I think I kind of agree with what you're saying. At least the way I'm thinking about it as you explained it right now. Like, let's say you were having a problem with your partner, you're talking to me about it outside of this space, and we had a conversation about partner issues here, and Megan said something that was useful, and I remembered it. I don't think that that's problematic, because I could, you know, at least this is my opinion, like, I feel like I could just refer to it and say, you know, when I remember Megan said this, and I, you know, maybe that's applicable to you right now. I don't know if that's something that you can think about. I think where it gets, like, I'm using murky a lot today. Where it gets murky, it's like when we're having an entire conversation about what Megan said, you know, but it's not, but if it's something that's useful, like, if the goal of this group is to be able to apply what we learn here to our outside lives, and how are we not supposed to talk about what we've learned here?
Yeah. And
So,
I guess to me the accountability makes more sense, and if it feels like it needs to be brought back into group, like bring it back into group. You know.
So, like, if you were having that conversation and, for example, Agatha brought up what Megan said, and you were like, well, actually, like, what Megan said made me really uncomfortable in group, then I think
then
at that
you would
point,
maybe stop the conversation.
that's where I think you're accountable, and you're like, okay, clearly that, you know, that was something that needs to be processed in group, and you can bring that back in next time and say, you know, Ag and I were having a conversation about my issues that I'm having with my partner, and, you know, she brought up what Megan said to try and reassure me, and I realized that it actually kind of made me uncomfortable because of this, and I think that that's really useful in the group.
So it kind of sounds like the difference is whether something's positive or not. Like, there's a big difference between, oh, what Megan said really helped me, or can you believe what Megan said?
I think it's, well, but I think it's less about the positive or the negative or the feelings associated with it, or even the content of it or the motive behind it, as much as it is about, like, whatever happens outside we bring back to it, you know, if we just come, like, I think if you talk about it outside, you just bring it right back to the
that
group.
feels
And
more doable, I guess,
Right.
because we do interact so much all the time outside of this room.
I kind of feel like I kind of feel like it gives it permission somehow for us to make mistakes, because we're going to be making mistakes, and we're going to probably be crossing boundaries, and it's going to be like a learning process as we go along. And so then, as long as we're always bringing it back to it, we have a chance to repair that. But I think those things are going to happen, and like we may, I don't know.
And I like leaving space for those things are gonna happen, but I do want to come back to the idea of confidentiality in the sense that we've all kind of talked about it before this group, and that like things that other people share in the group should be confidential. We should be able to keep that confidential. Like, there's no reason that Lindsay and Melina should be talking about Chelsea's issues with her partner outside of this room, you know? So I think that like the situation that you guys are talking about where Chelsea and Agatha are talking about Chelsea's issues with her partner, and that happened to be something that you talked about in group, is different than the two of you talking about personal information that someone else shared. And I think that we can all sort of make that differentiation.
So, going back to what Emily said, I think you said, just making sure that we always bring it back to the group if something that we shared here comes. So for the example, I'm going to stick to the same example of Chelsea and I. In that example, would we have to bring that back?
I think there's no one like monitoring anybody, so there's no kind of, except for ourselves, so there's no like have to, or like you're gonna get in trouble if you don't, as much as like I'd hope that you would, like that anything that happens out, that's where I feel like the transparency. My hope is that anything that happens out there that really belongs here comes back here somehow.
Maybe we can, if it's like not, you know, when
Maybe
we
that's
talked
something
about
way
it,
too
we
big.
didn't get anywhere. It was the same conversation, and I'm still not whatever, you know, like just wanted to leave this.
I think also, as if that scenario happened, that the reason why it happened, why it even went out the room in the first place, is just as important about what was being said in that moment, and really reflecting on that, either with whoever you're talking to or in yourself. And that may be an issue of we didn't set stronger boundaries, or maybe an issue that we didn't define confidentiality to a point where we all understood what it meant, which is what this session is for too, is let's get on the same page, right? And so as it stands, are folks clear about if a scenario like that happened amongst yourself or in another person in the group, what the protocol would be?
Can I add another issue? What about discussing group as a whole or individual issues with people outside of group?
You mean people that are not in this room right now?
I'd love to do it with my therapist, but beyond that, that's about it.
Well, like, what if Chelsea's having a problem with her partner and we talk about it in group? Can she bring that to him and kind of say, like, well, in my group, this was kind of spitballed around, and that kind of thing. If it has to do with someone outside here.
Yeah, right.
I think if it's your own personal issue, you can do with it what you want. Because
Okay,
if I'm coming in here talking about my boyfriend and you guys really helped me, like I want to feel like it's okay for me to go to him and be like, the group is really supportive and I want to tell you that.
Like, can we keep it as a group too, and not say like, well, Chelsea said you're being really selfish.
Well, my
right?
boyfriend doesn't know anyone, so it doesn't.
But some of them will. Some of them will. So I think that's
Right.
important.
Yeah, just like general, like
How about like no names?
Yeah.
No names.
Anonymity.
Yeah.
Okay. So no names.
And it has to be your own issue if you're going to bring it up outside.
Right. But discussing group as a whole, other than it being your own personal issue with people not in this room.
Just with your own therapist would be my vote.
Yeah.
Any opposition to that?
I mean, like, if I'm having a rough day and it's because of group, and Danny's like, hey, why are you in such bad mood? I'm gonna say, I had a bad group today. I'm not gonna say, here's why.
Sure.
But I'm not gonna, like, pretend that I'm not gonna say that, because I'll just say it.
The reason I bring that up is that students in the past have had an issue with somebody in another class saying, "Oh, group was so intense tonight." They didn't necessarily say what it was about or what was going on, and another group member overheard that statement and felt very betrayed by that.
So, see, that's kind of, because we have class after this, And so let's say someone in that class who's not in this group, let's say we had an intent session and then we go to class and then they notice something's wrong with you, like,
You're all weeping.
yeah, you're like, I mean, can I not say, like, what would be the best way to word that? I think tone has a lot to do with it,
I was
too.
just gonna say tone, and it's also like, if I was the one that made the group really intense, you not being like, well, Melina was so annoying.
But even if she doesn't say Melina, if you know,
And
we're
then I
class and she's
know.
like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "And group was so intense," and you're sitting there, you're like, "The group is intense." That makes me so
Okay, well,
uncomfortable. I mean, like that's what I got from Ginger.
yeah,
You
I
don't
totally
say
get it.
anyone's name.
Right. Well, we had a rough group session. Not like.
How can we
Yeah.
alleviate a potential situation like that in a way that folks could feel comfortable, as comfortable?
Or couldn't you turn it on more like to what you're feeling, not like blaming it on group or something?
Yeah.
It's like I'm having a lot of emotions after group today.
Yeah,
It doesn't tell you anything about what happened.
Totally great. You know, so start with an I statement.
Mm-hmm.
I can use it today.
I think that's a really great point.
Yeah, I really like that redirection of sort of taking accountability and responsibility as well as protecting the group, all by changing it to an I statement. Don't blame it on the group.
Lindsay, how are you feeling about everything that folks are sharing and posing as potential ways to protect us?
I agree. Yeah, I'm really sick, and so I'm just struggling with my throat. So I don't know.
For sure.
I'm glad you told us you were sick because I thought you were sick.
Oh no, I'm sick. I've been sick all week.
She's sad about it.
So. Yeah, I'm sad about that. Yeah.
Fair enough.
I appreciate the energy you do have
Yeah.
that you're using with us in this process.
Is it okay with everybody if I do a time check? I just want to be aware of how much time we have left so that
We're at 3:15. What time do we wrap?
3:30.
Okay.
We have about 15 minutes left. So Teresa and I think we're just thinking about sort of doing a debriefing at this time, just kind of reiterating the things that we came up with as a group and establishing those things as our community agreements that we can sort of look back to when we need to and hold ourselves accountable to.
Each other.
How many sessions or how much
long
time?
is each section?
An hour. And then we have the 30 minutes of processing after that.
A little less.
A little less today.
So let's get a little bit of feedback on, in terms of debriefing, how this process, day one, has gone for you, all the way from checking in, realizing that not everyone's on the same page. Some folks' immune systems are not all here. Some folks were really nervous, anxious, tired. All the way to me and Katie's explanation of what to expect as we moved into forming our own expectations of each other.
I'm just imagining like what this would be like with a bunch of strangers, and I feel super comfortable around all of you. So I feel like already walking into this, I'm like, you guys are all my friends, so I don't feel that anxious. But I'm just remembering that this is practice for like a different group where nobody knows each other, and I can see how like not knowing anything about anyone, coming to a consensus of a bunch of rules could probably be quite bumpy. Whereas like we're all pretty much on the same page. There's like not a lot of disagreement in terms of what we all need. So just reflecting on, I think it helps also that we're all studying. Yeah. We're like all really sensitive and understanding of each other. Like, is that okay? You know, I can just imagine if it's like, I don't know.
I'm glad you brought that up because I appreciate everyone giving us the grace of cooperating, and participating. But I wouldn't be surprised if everyone's wondering, okay, this is great, but with real people, what do we do? How did folks feel when they
I similarly feel like a lot of trust already, like within the group. And I feel like I trusted all of you before that, but there does feel like a little bit of like I feel a little connected
like two of us like little birds in a little way, but so I know it's kind of like
baby
yeah, it's like this little, it's kind of like this is happening, but it's similar. I'm like, wow, like it's a lot easier with all of you. So
I'm so happy to hear you say that. Even just a little bit is, more than before, and I think it'll be a process, but I think that we'll build up to it, and I'm excited for it.
How does your apprehension of the reality of this process, how does that affect your ability to be in this space in terms of mentally, in terms of, does it at all have any kind of effect?
To me, it opens me up for like potential problems. Like it makes me welcome bumps because I view it as a learning experience. So I'm like, you guys are so safe that I'm okay with like it being messy at times.
Yeah, you're kind of okay with the troubleshooting and the
Sure.
trial and error of it. Kind of because of the care. There's a lot of genuine care that came in before we even started this process. And so that's something to acknowledge, yeah.
And this also kind of made me think that I've never led a group before, so this being the group experience, I would hope that I wouldn't get frustrated with a group of strangers that I was leading if they didn't get here, even after like a couple sessions.
Yeah, this is like a pretty advanced group for a first meeting.
Advanced how?
Like in terms of comfort level, like energy, cohesiveness, knowing about each other. I feel like it's the fourth week of a new group or something.
Others?
Yeah, I'm just feeling a lot better than when we first started. Like in my check-in, I was really nervous, and now I'm just like, relax. This is gonna be good. But I think just doing the community agreements was the most helpful.
I would like to just put out there and challenge the group too to know that like we're also not strangers to confrontation amongst our cohort, right? And I know you've been in spaces where you've heard students vocalize that need to like challenge each other or check each other. That's a really harsh way of saying it too, but that it won't always be so cohesive, or it won't always be where we walk out the door feeling great. That discomfort is going to be apparent and almost necessary, right? And so kind of want to get folks' feelings about what it's like to anticipate even those moments and those experiences. And what are the, like, why care about those, right? Like, why are those important?
I've appreciated them. I feel like I came into the program feeling like I've been in therapy for so many years and I've done group work and I'm older than everybody and like kind of a little bit like I had nothing left to do. Like I was set and there was so much growth and expansion that's happening that I didn't expect. And so, and some of that has come from a lot of that conflict. So I really, yeah, I really appreciate it. I've loved the experience, and so, and like, if it had been easy, that growth wouldn't have happened. So, I'm not afraid of it. But yeah, it's still, yeah, totally emotional about way more other things today. So I'm sure that's all coming to service because of that. But yeah, not afraid of it. Yeah, love it. So.
Thank you for sharing that, and I can feel how emotional you are and how much you've been impacted by similar experiences like this before, and so it's nice to hear that you've had powerful and positive experiences in groups like this. But I also wanted to just check in with you for a second because of all the check-ins, it seemed like you were kind of not having the best day. So I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing.
Isn't this like a doorknob grenade? Yeah, I can't. Anyway, yeah, I'll be fine. I've had a rough week and a rough day, and nothing that really I'm going to bring, I think, to the group now. But
some of it's just a matter of just making some minor adjustments in my life so that I can take better care of myself. But thanks for checking. I'll be fine.
Thank you for letting us know. And I'm gonna do one of those things where I said I was nervous about doing it because Ginger just told us to do it, but I'm gonna encourage you to bring that into the group next time if you feel comfortable.
I facilitate next week.
In that
I haven't
case,
talked
maybe
to my
not.
group
But-
yet, but but yeah.
But
It's not an avoidance technique.
okay.
I like, I appreciate you taking that risk at voicing that you thought you weren't a vessel anymore.
Yeah.
And you weren't capable of growing past where your experiences were until you got here, and so you got into those uncomfortable conversations, dialogues, so people checked you or challenged you.
Yeah.
But that,
The work's never done, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's a kind of important lesson.
thank you for modeling that the difficulty but the reward that comes out of staying so open. It is still so hard for all of us in different ways to come to that place in a lot of ways. And at least in this group, our main purpose is to make sure folks feel safe enough to get even a sliver closer to feeling comfortable enough to do that.
Thank you for your vulnerability.
We're good. We got 5 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, so at this point we were planning on just sort of doing a closing checkout. And for the checkout, our idea was kind of maybe just like a 2-word checkout that is sort of your an intention or a hope or a desire, expectation for the group.
2 words.
Yeah, like a minimal.
2 words or a short sentence?
2 words or short sentence that it's just sort of, like I said, an expectation that you have for the group or an intention you want to set for the group, just something you want to kind of put out there for the group.
I would also kind of like to know, in contrast to where you were in the beginning of your group, where you're at now. That requires maybe just 1 word, and then ending it with what Katie's asking of us too. I'll go to you.
Okay. I feel less judgmental of the process now than I did at the beginning. And I just hope that this whole group process allows people to know more of me.
I'm just really excited to start, I know this session was like, doing all the community agreement and like boundaries and all that. So I just wanted to start already, I really believe in the process and it's probably my own stuff too, but I'm really looking forward.
I was really tired when we got to the group. I woke up during it because I felt involved and just feel good about this and this whole process and this class. And I guess what I want to throw out there in 2 words is just being open for myself and for everybody else too.
So I started off nervous and now I'm pretty good. But what I hope or expect for the group is growth.
For me, it's appreciation. Like, for example, like with my young Lizzie, like a lot of stuff with introvert stuff, like I don't know. So it's really nice to hear that. And yeah, also cool.
I feel less nervous and less tired too. And I just am excited to close
Oh, I wrote down just as like a 2-word intention, new depths, because I feel like this is the first time we're really having an experience like this in our program. And I know we've done role plays and stuff like that before, but I just think this is the first time where we really have a chance to be this vulnerable and be this open and learn this much from even just a small group of us. And so I'm excited to reach those new depths with you guys.
Yeah, still not great in my personal life, but with this process, I'm feeling really good. And yeah, looking forward to growth. I love the open space. Keep those in mind. I'm realizing that I don't really like round robin,
even though I don't have a problem sharing and I don't get anxious when I share, when it's round robin and my turn is coming, I literally feel my heart like, what are you gonna say? What are you gonna say? So I kind of feel that right now. So my responses in the round robin process might be a little bit different than when I just share because my anxiety is like, affecting that. And as far as the group expectations, or intentions, just willingness to challenge myself and for other folks to challenge themselves as well.
And thank you for sharing the thing about the round robin. It's good to know. I get that too.
Yeah.
Finding a new anxiety though that we didn't get to talk about, but like sharing or taking up too much space in the group. And I know not everybody probably feels that anxiety because there are people that like need to be asked to share, but I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll share. But with that, I guess I want to push myself to be more vulnerable, and I like the new depths a lot.
I was feeling nervous and excited, and now I just feel excited. And I'll share one word with a short explanation that I love sharing with folks is the meaning of respect, or the way I was taught it by a mentor of mine. When you take the word respect and you break it down into syllables, respect, meaning like to do again or to do over, like oh my gosh, what else can you do? Reheat, whatever. Yeah, like, right? You do it over again. And then the spect comes from the root word spectacle, it literally means to see. So like the literal definition of respect means to see, or to see again, to look again. And meaning to give yourself the grace to look at yourself over and over again because you may not see something that you thought you saw before, but it looks different now. Or same with other folks that, we need more than just saying be respectful. We're saying look at me again, or look at that person again. Because you never know what you'll learn about them that you didn't know before, or to not make assumptions. That's what it helps me do. It helps me to not be judgmental or not make assumptions that I know where that person's at. And so I'll leave that.
So I think we're out of time for today, but I think Teresa and I both just wanted to say thank you. At least I want to say thank you for sort of easing us into this process because it was a little scary going first, but you guys made it really easy. So thank you all for your participation.
You did a good job.
I know.
Okay, actually, stay where you are.
I really need to.
I'm like so nervous.
Let's move our chairs back about 6 inches, as much as you can. So we're actually gonna physically, scoot away from each other. Like give yourselves more space than you had before. Let's bring our, so I really want everyone to kind of imagine that the group members have now filed out of the room. And they're headed out to their cars or to get coffee or dinner or whatever it is that they do next. They're thinking about their way home or whatever class is next. And I want you to imagine a group of students have been observing. And they are now filing into this room to discuss what happened, what they saw during group. Okay? So this is a very different process that we're entering right now. This is not a process where we are going to continue the dialogue about group. This is a process where observers are now coming in to talk about the dynamics that they saw. Okay? And so when we talk about those things, and I'm noticing the door is open. Yeah, I know, but I'll just get up and open it. When we talk about these things, I want you to try to keep in mind that it is not a continued dialogue. It's not a time to defend yourself or to explain yourself or anything of that nature. It's more a time where we're going to self-supervise, okay? So there will be times where I'm going to say, you know what, I think that discussion probably needs to go into the next group as opposed to here. So I'll say that sometimes when it gets a little fuzzy, okay? So I'm going to call those people, the group members, or U2s. They just dropped a new album. You probably have it on your iPhone without your permission. And so your U2s have left the building, and now it is your U1s who have been observing the group process. So normally what I would do at this time is go to my observers first. But because we're a little bit short on time, I'm going to go ahead and go first, and then anything that I miss, I'm going to invite you all to talk about, okay? So, so the first thing I want to say to Teresa and Kate, how do you think things went?
Like our performance or
your performance?
Personally, I think we were so caught up in making sure everyone got it that we spoke more than, or I feel like I spoke more than I wanted to.
Okay.
At least in context of the reading I did yesterday, of notes, I was like, okay, keep in mind when you go into class tomorrow. Some of those went out the window because I don't know, or it was just hard to.
Well, it's overwhelming. Number
Yeah.
one, I mean, this is very anxiety provoking, so yeah, some stuff's gonna get erased. Yeah. Okay, so you felt like you talked too much?
Not every time, but that I would have liked to have done a lot more of what the book was modeling of being in the here and now and bringing folks in to guide the process with us instead of us just facilitating a majority of it.
Okay.
I completely agree with Teresa. Okay, exactly on that page. That overall, I feel like it went better than I expected.
Yeah.
I felt like people participated more than I expected. But in terms of and I felt connected to Teresa as a co-facilitator and on the same page as with Teresa more in the first session than I expected to.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel like I talked too much.
Okay.
And I also agree that I feel like it had been more that I had encouraged more of a group discuss exactly what she just said.
So let me tell you two things. I was really impressed, and I was impressed for two reasons. The first is I thought the ease with which you were connecting and talking about the issues felt very relaxed and confident. I think you made the group feel very safe because of your confidence. The other thing that I noticed is that you were very aware of the here and now. Each of you made tons of comments about what was happening in the group. I'll talk more specifically about what I mean by that. But the other thing I just love is that you both kind of hit on the one piece of, well, I have a couple of critical feedbacks, but the one piece of critical feedback that I was going to give is when we're establishing group rules and community agreements, I often prefer they come a little bit more from the group. So when those questions got asked, instead of answering them, I would say, well, what does the group think? And the reason I do that, it goes faster and easier when you do it that way. However, every group personality is different. So the rules you guys came up with about confidentiality is qualitatively different than the rules that have been brought up before, because it just depends on the personality of the group. So the more you can kind of put it back on them rather than you answering the questions, I think the better off you're going to be when it comes to this stuff. Yeah.
When Chelsea brought up in the group that she felt like we had sort of breezed through the community agreements and that she didn't feel completely clear, it sort of hit on the feeling that I had already had that we had breezed through them a bit, because I felt like we took up a lot of time explaining what they were and talking about community agreements that we didn't give enough time for the group to actually come up with them.
Yeah.
And I also felt just very strongly that that maybe we should have let the group come up with them a little bit more on their own.
Yeah. So that's yes to all of that. But that said, this process takes about 3 sessions to really solidify. So I want you to recognize that this wasn't a wrong way. It was a way. What I would like to see is for the next group leaders to definitely bring in the observers. How do you feel? Were there things you wanted added to that? Were there things you were uncomfortable? And then also bring up to the group, were there things that came up for you, other agreements that maybe we didn't address? So you're going to do that in iterations for the next couple of sessions. So that kind of overall feedback having been said, Teresa, I liked the welcome. Again, I think you bring the group into a very comfortable space. You have a self-assuredness that comes across, particularly when you're reflecting back what someone else has said. You reflect it in a way that not only I think you get their content right, but your tone makes them feel like you get them. And I think that really makes people feel safe and heard and understood. And your reflections go deeper than what they've given you, which I also really liked. Katie, from the get-go, you were doing verbal following during the check-in. You were connected with everyone. I liked your self-disclosure on your check-in, feeling a little overwhelmed, especially given the lecture. I think super honest, really genuine about what was going on with you. And then I like that Teresa noticed that. I like that in that moment Teresa said, thank you for sharing that. The gratitude, there was a lot of gratitude that you guys facilitated. A lot of thank yous for sharing that. And it wasn't a thank you for sharing that. It wasn't like the obligatory thank you for sharing that. I really felt like you meant it. And I think that mattered. I think that probably was resonating with the group members. Let's see. During the introduction, Katie did a lot of reflection around the low energy, people feeling tired. You addressed participation funds, food. I wrote here, let the group take the lead on making the agreements and answering questions for clarification. Teresa, you did the community agreements. I liked that you asked, what does safety mean to everyone? I think that was an important question, and I think we let one person answer it, and we kind of dropped it. I wish we would have kind of gone back and asked the question a couple more times to allow other people to answer it. So yeah, I would suggest putting things out to the group more. You did that more in the second half of group. You did a really nice job with that. I think, and you noticed, I heard you say, I feel like we're talking too much, and at that point you made a shift. And so I liked your self-awareness. Katie, you encouraged Melina to sharing experience back to the group.
I know what you're talking about.
What was I talking about?
She said, what if what if I had what if I had a really tough something day time
That's right.
And I was she said, and I want to talk to about somebody else and say okay, but I would also encourage you.
Yeah, I liked that. I liked that you said that. The other thing I wanted to say that I forgot to tell you guys is when one of you is talking to the group, or if someone let's say Melina's talking, and the natural person to look at Melina is probably going to be Katie because it's right across from her. So Teresa, your job then during that, and it's going to feel really weird because it's going to feel rude, but your job is to scan the group during Melina's talk. And the reason for that is you want to catch other people's reactions and pull them into Melina's experience. And then vice versa. If Sonia is talking, you're probably going to be the one, so you'll be the one to scan. So you always want to be scanning, always. It's going to feel weird at first, but then the group will get used to it. You'll get used to it. It'll be fine.
I tried it once and everyone was like, this is how I'm having
Yeah, it is. And then Teresa linked Chelsea to Emily about giving feedback, that it was easier to give than to get. Really good linking. That was great. And then, Teresa, you brought in Araceli, which was really important. I like that you guys went back to that and processed for Araceli what that was like. The other thing you said, I felt like we breezed through those. There was a benefit of breezing through those because you kind of got through the bigger picture, and then people had time to think on it, and then they were like, you know what, I think it was Chelsea, I'm not exactly comfortable with this piece. I don't feel like I have clarity. So sometimes going over the larger issue and then coming back and diving in can be effective because it gives people time to think. So And then Teresa thanked Araceli for correcting her. I loved that. So you said, does it make you anxious? And Araceli said, no, it's not anxiety. And you said, thank you for correcting that word. I think I imposed that on you. You said something more articulate than what I just said. I liked that. It set the tone for it is okay that I'm wrong, and it's okay for you to let me know how you really feel right off the bat. That's really important. Sometimes with my kids, I want it to. It works that way. I didn't mean for it to there. Okay. So this, I want to give feedback, but I want to be aware of sexism and all the shit that we tell women about the way they look and all of this stuff. And I was, how am I doing this? So, Teresa, love those jeans. Those jeans are amazing. They're adorable. They're awesome. Yeah. When you're leading groups, now it depends on context too. So if you're working in an area where you've got a lower socioeconomic status, you don't necessarily want to separate yourself a lot from the clientele by dressing up or whatever. And I'm not asking you to dress in a suit or whatever when you guys lead, but do think about like what is the message I want to give as soon as I sit down. And I would even say jeans are okay when you're leading, as long as you kind of dress it up a little bit. But when you've got the torn, and I love torn jeans.
No, it's okay. I'm not taking it personally.
Okay.
It was hot, and I didn't realize that we should have.
I hear you. So I've been struggling with how am I going to say this? Shaming her.
No. I appreciate that.
They want to wear it. So, okay. So I just want you to think about your expertness. Like, what is it that you want to bring into the room? And it will be different in different contexts. There are some contexts where you don't want to dress up. So just be aware of that. Okay. The getting up to go to the bathroom thing, I thought that was great. We had a little bit of storming there. Just a little bit. That was really cool. It's like, and it was actually Melina number 2, who's gone now, who said, like, I don't want to think that I can't go to the bathroom.
That was me. Oh, I thought you said she's gone now.
You are gone.
You
missed
the
part. Oh, you weren't here.
Oh, I wasn't here.
What are you talking about?
Your U2 who is a group member is gone to coffee or whatever.
Okay.
Your U1 who was observing the group process is now in.
Yes.
We're trying to separate out group from this. Sorry. All right. Anyway.
That was so fun to watch.
That was way too existential for me.
Okay. Anyhow, that was really interesting. And then Katie reflected there were mixed feelings about this. I'm so glad we brought it up. Katie checked in with Teresa, and I agree. When you said I felt more connected to Teresa, normally I have to tell co-facilitators, check in with each other. You need to kind of give a little look every now and then. You guys will develop nonverbals where you'll be able to kind of like, little things that kind of help each other. But you did that. Like you even said very explicitly to her, am I making sense? And she was able to say, yeah, no, I get you. And so that's important. I want you to be connected to your co-facilitator. So you do want to kind of check in every now and then.
Can I share something on
Yeah.
that? One of our co-facilitator goals was having like developing a more cohesive and integrated style in the group. And so I had been feeling for a little while that I wanted to sort of bring Araceli into the mix.
Yeah.
And Teresa got to it like right at the time, and the feeling inside at that moment, the feeling inside of me that like we were just on the same brain wavelength about that just felt really awesome.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're describing. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. And then that's so at this point things shifted, and that's where you said, what other needs do people have? And I like the way you phrased it too. What other needs do people have that haven't been addressed in these areas? I really liked that, and that's where we kind of went into more depth. And then that's when Katie went to Araceli to process what that was like. And then Katie, that's where you kind of, I like that you guys put out the question, because I think it was Teresa that put out the question, like, how can we, no, I don't remember which of you, but essentially, how can we make it okay to pass? Because we were talking about some people need to be invited in, other people don't want to be called on. You can't really expect yourself to remember who needs what. And so you were absolutely right on the money to try to come up with a solution. I think you said, how can we remedy that? I don't remember which of you said it. But then you kind of answered the question. And I loved your answer. However, I would have asked the group, because again, you're training them to sort of be their own therapist, to run the group eventually. So,
Are you talking about like feeling comfortable saying I don't? Okay.
yeah. So saying, what is something we can say if we're called on and we're not ready, and then let the group come up with it. It sounds silly, but really every opportunity you have to shape the group into sort of taking lead is what you want to do. And then Katie linked Chelsea and Emily about Teresa being at the board. That's what that was. Okay. Nice job. So you looked directly at Chelsea and you were like, no, Emily says she felt the same way. So it was a very kind of powerful little linkage there, which again, as many of those as you can get. Let's see, Katie clarified the confidentiality issue. That's where I came in to talk about statements to those outside the group. Teresa was actually reading my mind. You're very bad. So I was sitting back there going, yep, it feels good today, but it's not always going to feel this way. And I was like, we need to prep them. And I was about to come in, and Teresa says, I just want to say, and I love the context because you made reference to this group's past. Like we have had, we have a history of sort of confronting each other and challenging each other. And I just want to put out there that it's not always going to feel safe and that that's okay. And then you referenced Emily. Or wait, maybe that happened afterwards.
I think she's volunteered to.
That's right. That's where you came in and shared that those challenges are what helped us to grow. Beautiful the way that it unfolded. And then we did some clarifying. Katie checked in with Emily, which I really liked because I wrote up here, Emily having a tough time at check-in. Katie thanked her for her honesty. Would normally go back to her after that check-in. But you were right not to today because today we had to get this stuff laid down. But I like that you went back to her at the end. Okay, and then nice checkout. I know we're really short on time. Did I miss anything substantial that you're like, oh, what else was really amazing? Oh, you guys.
You just summarized everything.
Yeah,
I
know.
Everything.
Okay.
I was like, how do you write so
I was like,
fast?
Actually, it's over an hour's time, and I only have this much, so it's actually.
Can I just voice something?
Yes.
Is that my hope is, because I think there's like a lot of things I'm like, oh, I wish that would have happened, but it didn't, which is fine. But that I do hope we help let the community agreements guide our process, that it does take a lot of weight off too if we're clear about what we're accountable to.
Mm-hmm.
Like that kind of does help facilitate the process, and that folks do take time when it's time to facilitate to just bring attention to it. Yeah, like it might need for us to read through them each time. I've been in spaces where we did that, and that's why I never forget them.
Yeah.
And like why they're so important just out the gate. And so whatever style that works for you, like I feel like it is important though. So not forget them or not.
One thing about this room too, I've seen other classes do projects in here where they have actually left up papers in here and they've stayed up most of the semester. So we can give it a shot. I mean, I can't guarantee that the paper will stay up and that nobody will tear it down. But if you want to bring in butcher paper, we could try to staple it up there or tape it up here or whatever.
I either had the idea or store it in your office.
What was stored?
Stored in your office.
Or stored in my office.
Like roll
yeah.
it up and then bring it back. Yeah.
That would require me to remember.
No, or like we take turns getting it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We were also thinking of, in addition to having them in the room every time, we were going to type them up and just email just the agreements to everyone so that you have it.
Are you guys cool taking responsibility doing that? Just for group 2 presenting next week so that we have it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was just to try and get it. But.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the walls didn't cave in. Everything was okay, right? That is everything here. And, you know, it gets more real as time goes on, but it's a good real. It really is. It doesn't always feel good. There will be times you leave here feeling not okay and wondering if that is like something might be wrong because I'm not feeling good and something's wrong with this class. There will be times when you feel that way, and that's okay. But great job, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, so for next week, like obviously we're gonna have like our pre-thoughts or whatever that means, but is it more of just like a general therapy session, like where we just
Yes.
talk about
So next week you would just do, and I would still do the round robins, just because it's quicker. It gets them done and everybody gets in and you don't have to think who's won, who hasn't won. But I would just do a quick round robin check-in and say who has something they'd like to share with the group, and that's it. And then the group has to kind of take over and, well, actually that's not true. I wouldn't rehash this, because you've got the new people in. So you're probably going to take about 15 minutes of your time readdressing these, maybe longer, depending on if anything new comes up. And then you'll say, okay, who would like to start us off? Yeah.
When is the presentation next week? Before or after?
After. So we're not going to be short on time anymore because we always start the group after this. So yeah, it'll be after. All right. So that means we have to be really on time.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Yeah, you said you wanted